Facebook, live on Twitter. YouTube always takes the longest.
Does it?
One more to go down here. There we go. Live on YouTube. Let's get started. G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL Fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players who will bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Heff and I'm your host, and today I am joined by Tommy Wyman. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks, Heff. How are you?
Not too bad. I haven't seen you since the live show. I reckon you've been on one podcast and you make your debut on the live show over K's. How good's that?
How good's that? Yeah, pretty happy with that.
Oh no, I don't think you've actually met K's in the flesh yet. But
haven't met him.
You might be a bit jealous. There was a video of him on the live show.
Yeah.
How'd you go in front of the audience, mate?
Yeah, good. It was nice. I thought it was a good crowd there. Good turn up at the highway. It's good venue for it. So it was really enjoyable. Yeah, good day.
For those who don't remember you from either the live show or your first episode, the Adelaide Crows preview earlier in the pre-season, you are the rookie guru.
Yep.
You work for Rookie Me Central, the website that has all the under-18s and NAB League. It's not even called the NAB League anymore, is it?
No, it's the Coates League or something like that. Yeah, they change every odd year.
Yeah. But anyway, you're the rookie expert. You know the guys who are under-18, so you're
I like to think so.
Pretty valuable to this podcast because a lot of drafts out there are wanting to know about those sorts of players out there. But it's great to have you on the show again, mate. We'll get stuck into it. But first things first, I got a bit of an announcement. So from now on and for this season, this show is going to be brought to you by GameDay Squad. What do you know about GameDay Squad?
GameDay Squad, it looks awesome. It's sort of a take on FIFA Ultimate Team.
Yeah.
I really saw it the first time a couple of weeks ago, and it looks really good. Love the interface, love the sort of setup, and I think those that love FIFA are going to really like this.
So there's a few FIFA comparisons that always get drawn into it, but it's very similar to the Ultimate Team format, but it mixes AFL Fantasy into it. Basically, you get packs. You open packs that contain digital cards. And the cards that you get, you collect and use them to score fantasy points. So, for example, you could open up a pack and get a Took Miller card, and you can put that on your field and use that in there. You could open up a pack and get a Jack Steele. But what the unique thing about these cards is you can get different multipliers, and there's different levels of cards and things like that. So, you could get a gold Jack Steele, and he's worth 1.2 points. There's a multiplier on him. So, it's a pretty interesting way to play. So, if you haven't actually checked it out before, head to gamedaysquad.com.au. Create, coach, and compete is their slogan. But, essentially, you'll get free packs for signing up, and you think you get free packs weekly. And, you can start assembling your fantasy squad on there. So, the great thing about GameDay Squad as well, it ties into our podcast because you can keep players from year to year. Whatever card you get, it's yours for life until they retire. In fact, I've still got some retirees on my list. I've noticed they stay there. So what I'm going to ask you, Tommy, is if you could get one card to keep for the future, who would it be in GameDay Squad?
Well, I think the obvious ones are Ashcroft and Dacos. I think Nick Dacos. I think they're the obvious ones. But I'm gonna throw one up, and I really like what I saw with him on the weekend, and we'll get into him later. But Finn Callahan from GWS, I reckon he's got star written all over him.
There's your left field pick.
Yeah, sort of a little bit left field, sort of a winger that can play inside as well. Big frame. I reckon he's in for a super year with GWS. I'm really excited to see what he can bring.
Now, I didn't see that game, so I'm actually looking forward to you talking about it. But head to gamedaysquad.com.au. Make sure you're opening up your weekly packs and getting your team assembled. There's only 2 weeks to the season starts, so make sure you're checking that out. I do need to plug something though, Tommy. I apologise. On Wednesday night, on my YouTube channel or the Keeper League YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter, I'm going to open 100 GameDay Squad packs. You heard correctly, 100 packs. How long do you reckon that's going to take me?
That's going to take a while. Jeez.
Well, I do have to apologise to the listeners tonight as well because we're not going to have time for listener questions. So I'm going to compensate. If you jump on the live stream on Wednesday, I'll have the chat open and I'm happy to answer any questions while I'm opening packs. So Wednesday night, I think it's 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern time. Get on the pack opening, and I'm actually going to make it a weekly event. Yeah. Maybe not 100 each week, because that'd probably take too much time. But I'm going to open packs each week. So jump on my streams wherever you follow us on the socials, and you'll be able to find it. And I'm going to open up some packs on GameDay Squad. Anyways, we'll get stuck into the show. I watched 6 games on the weekend. You watched 3. I live a very eventful life, obviously. I watch a lot of football, but got to do it for the listeners out there. So we're going to review those games in a second. But first of all, I just want to thank the members for signing up. So this is basically the last big podcast before the season begins. And yeah, basically at the start of this year, this podcast was looking like it might not even happen. But yeah, the members have signed up, helped me kind of do this podcast, take a day off work to actually get this podcast going. Wouldn't have been able to do that without members' support. So, from the bottom of my heart, I guess, out there, thank you to all the members who actually signed up, because you're probably not aware of this, but you actually kept the podcast going throughout this pre-season. So thanks heaps for that, all those people who've signed up. And yeah, if you haven't signed up and you want to support the show, there's a link in the description below. This week, Tommy, I put out some ADP data. Keeper League specific. You ever seen Keeper League specific ADP data anywhere on the internet?
Never seen it before. No. That's exclusive content you'll get there.
That's the second time of the year in a row I've done it. So I've collected data from a heap of leagues out there. I've got, thanks to all the coaches that sent me in all their results, draft results, compiled it, work out where people are going on average in
it's a
Keeper
great
Leagues.
tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great tool.
You get the top 200 for free on the website. Sign up as a member. You get the top 400 players in the ADP data. Our rankings are also out, so you can use that as well. Plus all the other resources there too. We read out some gold members each week. I'm going to let you read them out this week, Tom. If that's right with you. I hope your pronunciation's up to scratch.
Here we go. Thank you very much to Anton Setanic. Hope you got that one right. Paul Monkus, William Youngkin, Richard Abel, Cameron Lester, Jimmy Henwood, Daniel Schmidt, MP, Alex Fugslang, and Troy Woodruff.
Nailed it, mate. I don't think there was one
hopefully
mispronunciation in there. All right, let's stop stuffing around and let's get into what people are waiting for, and that is the review of the practice matches. So anyway, Thursday afternoon, got home from work, chucked this one straight on, and a few players caught my eye in the Hawthorn versus Collingwood game. First one, and you're going to love this one, Tommy.
Yeah.
Cam McKenzie. Now, Classic World's going nuts over him. They're all locking him to a side, cheap, rookie price, all that sort of stuff. Had 92 points in his practice match, and even in keeper leagues, like over the weekend, I was in a few drafts, and everyone's been talking all pre-season, like Ashcroft, Sardis, Philippou, all those guys going at the start. And then basically McKenzie comes along and he rockets up to at least the number 2 ranking, I think, on this weekend's games.
Well, he should be right up there with those names because he's shown that 92 points is awesome from a rookie. Like that's up there with what Ashcroft scored. So that's really awesome. And I think the thing with him is he's at Hawthorn, so he's going to be given time because they're in that rebuild stage. And he can also play a number of positions. Can play inside, can play outside, can play half forward, half back. He's got the skills that sort of go translate over all lines. So I can see why it's easy to see why ownership is getting higher for him. Yeah,
well, we were talking about it in the pre-season, me and Jep, when we did a bit of a pre-season show. A draftee show, sorry. And essentially, like, we thought that because Hawthorn were just missing so many midfielders, or they traded so many out, essentially, he was going to get opportunity straight up. And that's what drew us to him straight away. But yeah, in this game, he got plenty of midfield time, went in there straight away, also went forward and kicked the goal. Just looked like he could match it at a level. So Cam McKenzie, he's definitely a player to watch for the future. Draft him, he rockets up the draft keeper league board. So yeah, I probably should get the ADP data up in a second. I might actually do that. But he's definitely one that should be rocketing up those boards and take him ahead of some of the older names out there if you need to, if you're building for the future, because he's definitely one that impressed. Speaking of guys who impressed, James Warple.
The Warpedo, yeah.
Now, for people that have listened to this podcast, I think in our first year we did this podcast, I had James Warple on my rookie list. So not on my main squad, but I picked him up so late in the draft that no one wanted him. And I've held him since. Now, we had a keeper delistings this week, and basically all pre-season looked like Warple was out, and he totally redeemed himself in this game. So 85 from 67% time on ground. You can't kick, but who cares? Probably doesn't matter. Because when I look at Hawthorn's list, and I'm going to pose this to you, who replaces him? Who comes in and takes his spot after that performance?
Yeah, they're wafer thin in the midfield stocks, Hawthorn. So I don't think anyone's really bashing the door down for Warple, who's going to take his spot.
And you say Warple can't kick. Half the squad can't kick.
Yeah.
Like, they're not a good team.
They're not, they've got Spoon written all over them.
Yeah,
so
100%. He just provides that leadership for him. He'll get first hands. He's got no fear, so he'll just
throw his body around.
Throw his body in there, and hopefully just get the ball moving in the right direction, for the side. So I can see him playing, at least for the first few rounds, and then if he scores well and probably does enough to just kind of play that crash and bash inside midfielder where they don't really worry about where
Ball
he kicks
use.
it too much. Yeah, ball use too
just
much.
Get it out, shovel it out to the ones that can actually kick it.
If he can do that, he could rack up a heap of touches and just get like an 80 every now and then. So I'm happy to have him in the side. So, not too fussed about James Warple, even though there will be some doubters out there. He's in my side, locked into my keepers, and I'm happy to have him. Move on to Connor McDonald. He had 80 points. He was split between forward and the wing. I think he had a few CBAs from memory. Can't actually remember. But he just surprised me because everyone talks about Josh Ward being the main gun and the way he finished his season. He looked more comfortable, I reckon, on the weekend. So, what do you think?
I think the gap between him and Ward is a lot less than what maybe people think. I think McDonald's a really, really good player. He's sort of a half forward that his traits are sort of more leaning towards the outside of the midfield. So he's not going to be thrown in the middle in terms of the inside. But I think, unlike Warple, he's like really classy. He uses the ball really well. He's really quick as well. And I think those traits are best used off half forward. I think they love him.
That's
at
where
Hawthorn.
he looked great. Like kick a few goals up there.
I think they really like him at Hawthorn. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays as many games as he can fitness wise. So I think he's going to be a good player for Hawthorn.
Just talking about Josh Ward, like he was kind of on the wing for a bit, then went inside, didn't do a heap, so I don't have a lot of notes on him, but I still think he's got the goods.
Yeah,
but
he'll play as well.
Yeah.
They just need games into these guys at this point.
Exactly. But when he gets that right role, he'll be fine. Andrew Griffiths is on the stream and says, "Hey boys." So g'day Andrew, listening on the stream. All right, moving on to Chad Wingard. Had 80 points. He was basically exclusively forward, but I think he can do that. Every now and then, probably every second or third week, he'll get you an 80. So he's one I'd take up there. I'm not much really more we need to say about that. Just probably no midfield time, as a lot of people were expecting.
Probably at this stage of his career, he's probably best around goal, I'd say.
And that's fine.
And he's a freak around goal, always has been. So,
if he can get a few
that.
in a losing side, he could be okay. Speaking of guys who can get a few goals, Fergus Green, he looked good. 62 points, kicked 3 goals. Got more of that classic hype about him just because he's a cheapie. Not one I'd want to be drafting just because I don't think he's going to score high.
Yeah, scoring will be the problem. I think he'll get games, but scoring, not sure he'll score very high.
Speaking of guys who could do some scoring, that's Will Day. A lot of talk about him this preseason, obviously. He had 73 from 73%. Not as impressive as last week, but I think in the first quarter he barely got a touch. From memory, he was on 3 points at quarter time. And I think he started on the halfback, on the wing, but then in the second quarter he went back into the midfield and kind of looked like he did the week before. If he can get that midfield role, there's no question he can be a handy scorer. It's just where he plays. Now, we've got a bit of inside knowledge about Will Day. You went to school with him, is that right?
I went to school with Daisy, yeah.
And what was he like? You never really considered him as a midfielder, did you?
I thought maybe he's always going to be a winger, half-back sort of type. Played a lot of half-back mainly through juniors and whatnot. He's just got the taller frame that sort of lends himself to like a third tall defender or a winger. Freak athlete, really good athlete. Speed, agility, endurance. Always has been a good athlete. But never really thought of him as an inside sort of player.
Yeah, when he goes in there, he does look like he adds that class.
He's classy, definitely classy.
It's because I think they've got Newcomb and they've got Warple in there. He just offers something different to them, and I think that's why they like him. Plus, he's a bit more mature than, say, your Josh Ward coming through or Connor McDonald and stuff like that. So I think he will get some midfield time. It's just about how much, and like he's going to be the more of the outside version of that inside mid, if that makes sense.
I think, to be honest, he's just going to be given a crack in all the roles you mentioned: half back, bit of half forward, wing, inside mid. It's just where he gets played predominantly.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to steal Roy's squirt from the live show. So Squirt, for those people who don't listen to Traders, that's a bit of a source, a bit of inside knowledge. Now, there was a bit of a story that Roy told about, he had some inside knowledge on Will Day, who actually had a bit of apparently he's never been able to breathe through his nose in the past. He's
can confirm.
Bit of a mouth breather.
Yeah.
So you guys, you and your mates, you text him on the day to ask if that was true. And he had an operation on his nose, hadn't he?
Yeah, he got the confirmation through via Snapchat.
So Will Day can now breathe through his nose.
Yeah,
so that could be the thing he needs to take that next step.
Game changer.
Yeah, could be the game changer. Just finishing up on Hawthorn, the Meek versus Reeves debate. I'm a bit salty on this one. Lloyd Meek looked like the better ruckman in this one, but they were both pretty average. I think one scored 50 and one scored 30. So it'd be great if it was a combined score of 80. The thing about Meek, he still looked like the player more likely to go up forward, take a grab and kick a goal. And that's actually what was the difference between the scores, really. Took a mark inside 50, kicked a goal. There's 12 points there, and I think he had another couple shots.
So I think Meek maybe just ahead slightly, but
slightly ahead as a player.
Yeah,
but I think they still need to use Reeves. I think they need to use Meek in the forward line. That's
as a.
But I think Reeves just probably isn't going to score that well unless he's like a lot taller than the other ruckman. Then he can just win all the hitouts.
And he will be a lot taller than some of them.
But he came up against Mason Cox in this one.
Yeah,
he was just pushing him out of the way because he lost his only advantage that he had. So
that's
still have faith in the Reeves. But I think he needs to be like at least 10 centimetres taller than the next ruckman and not the same height as him. That's all. Moving on to Collingwood, not a lot to talk about here. Josh Dacos was on the wing. We talked about it last week that he was going to decrease. He actually scored 105 points on the wing, and he looked good, but Hawthorn don't really have like defensive wingers, really. They're very inexperienced wingers as well. So he was just allowed to do what he wanted all day, basically. He was on Amon and Ward most of the day anyway. So Amon, I guess, is pretty experienced, but he's not the most defensive player out there. So he just did what he wanted. There was 2 tags in the midfield as well. I think it was DeGoey and Dacos both got tagged. So it just kind of let it for a bit of an extra bit of pill out there as well, I think.
It's weird. Like, Nick's going to get so much of the attention, but I reckon Josh is a gun.
Yeah, no.
Unlucky some say he'd be unlucky not to be All-Australian last year. So.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about the ruck situation at Collingwood. A lot of people are interested in Darcy Cameron, even though he is technically 2G, 4P. That's too good for the podcast for any new listeners out there. But here's 77 points. So many people, I think the classic world, are really, really concerned about him because they want to start him round 1. Only scored 77. I'm not as concerned because, like, given his pre-season, they're not just going to throw him out there into the deep because he's been pretty limited. He's got 2 weeks to get the body right. I think he'll do more of the main share of the rucking, once he gets his body kind of a bit more fitter, gets that match fitness up. I think long-term he's going to be the goods this season. He might start slow, but I think he's still going to be a premier ruckman towards the end of the year. Do you agree?
Oh, I'd have to agree, yeah. I think it'd be interesting to see the split between him and Cox if they do play, both of them. One to watch, but I'm sort of in the same boat as you. I'm not super concerned about it.
Yeah, no, neither. So I think he'll be the goods. Just got to be patient with him, that's all. Last one on my list for Collingwood is Darcy Moore. So he had 77 points, and he had the most kick-ins for Collingwood. We talked about this last week. Just being the captain, can take an intercept, grab and defence. He will take a few kick-ins because he just always does. He seems to at the moment. I know Braden Maynard wasn't playing. He does take a few, but I don't think that really affects him too much because the week before he still took a heap. I just think he's a good late pickup that no one's thinking about. That's all. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think the thing with Moore is that he can shut down an opponent, but also peel off and take some intercepts. So that lends itself to some +6s. Yeah, I think he gets his way up to a decent average. You're not going to pick him in classic, but for these sort of things, it might be worth a punt late.
Yep. All right. Yeah, no, I think so too. He's a good late pickup, one that not a lot of people are thinking about, and people have probably completed his drafts, and he's still sitting there on the waivers. So if you need a defender, he might be one to think about. Moving on to my boys, Port Adelaide against Fremantle. Pretty dismal display, but we'll focus on the fantasy anyway. We won't let my emotions get in the way. Brandon Cox had 107. I'm not going to read into that one. He averaged 65 last year. Nothing really changed from his role. Port are pretty wayward going inside forward. 50. Good score, but what do we call it?
He could just chop everything off, yeah.
We call it tip of the cap on this podcast when you score well, but when anything's going on.
Tip the cap.
Jordan Clark, so he had 97 points. Now, he's always a pre-season tease, but I think he actually does improve this year. I think he averaged high 70s last year. He got a lot of attention. I think he's just through natural progression, he pushes way above the 80 mark this year. One thing to think about, Luke Ryan still to come back into the side.
Yeah, that might be the sort of question there. How much? Yeah, Luke Ryan being out, how much does that impact him?
Well, Luke Ryan generally takes most of the kick-ins. So that cuts in a few points.
Yeah, so I do think Clark will be slightly better, but I think it'll be around the mark.
Around the 80 mark.
Around the 80 mark.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yago Mira, he scored 90 points just inside. CBA after CBA. He's going to do that every week.
Lock him in 85, 90. Yeah,
expect
more of the same.
I reckon 90. Expect 90 from each week. Nat Fyfe is one we kind of argued about last week. Checkers wasn't so keen on him. I'm keen on him as a forward. 83 points he scored this week. He's a superstar player. Dual Brownlow medalist. Park him in the forward line. He's going to kick 2 or 3 most weeks. So I think when you get those kind of weeks, he's going to score about 80. I reckon he's going to average around 80, which is pretty handy in a scarce forward line this year.
Yeah, but how much of those points are going to be relied upon by goals, though? That's,
heaps of them.
Yeah.
So I still reckon, because they're going to be a good side, I still reckon he gets a few.
Yeah, if he gets the best, like, does he get the second best defender, or it just depends on matchups, maybe.
Yeah, true. Maybe he might be one to stream, but I still reckon he goes close to the 80 mark this year, and he's going to be pretty handy to forward.
It is Nat Fife after all.
Exactly. Speaking of handy forwards, Liam Henry scored 72 points playing on the wing. Just O'Driscoll comes back into the side, though. So, yeah.
Probably O'Driscoll ahead, but apparently he's had a really good summer, Liam Ryan.
Yeah,
so
but apparently he did last year as well. That's the thing.
Maybe he's one of those guys that sort of never had a bad summer.
Yeah, I remember them talking about him in the same vein last year. So it's just one of those believe it when I see it type players, I think. If anyone interested, James Aish was on the other wing as well. So if you're wondering who was kind of covering the Blake Acres departure, he's kind of the other one over there. So moving on to some Port Adelaide players, Miles Bergman. Now we saw pictures of the pipes in the preseason. Huge guns now. He looked awesome in this game. And he actually looked good the week before as well. He scored 104 points and he was best on ground for Port Adelaide for mine. He just runs really hard both ways. Like, gets back, gets forward, and kind of just marches up and down that wing all day. I didn't realise how good his hands were at taking a grab. So he can just slot into holes, like drops back defence and takes like really good, grabs back there.
Yeah.
So he can get a few extra marks. Like he's another one, a midfielder that I think can push past the 80 mark this year.
I think, like with those traits there, I sort of think back to like a younger Callum Mills. Like he's sort of tall, good overhead, can play down back. But and there's also an endurance, like really good endurance runner, so he can run both ways. Yeah. Like what if he developed into more of an inside? Like I think he's more of an outside, but if he did develop into an inside, that's sort of who he could emulate his game on. But I do think he's more of a winger long term. What do you reckon? Yeah,
no, I agree. Like he does look more like a winger, although now he's got the pipes and he's pretty tall. Like I don't know, he looks tall. I don't know actually know what he's in centimeters, but look, I've got high hopes from this year, just like as like a good winger. 80 plus average, that kind of breakout year, potentially 90 one day, like one of those if he stays in that wing. If he does have the body type to move inside.
If he ever moved inside, I'd be interested.
Got the endurance. It's just a pretty static midfield for now. Yeah, that's all. Xavier Dersma, speaking of outside players, he was pretty similar to Bergman, really. 97 points, less powerful as Bergman, but a lot more flair, I think, as well. So Port look like they might use their wings coming out of defence a bit as well. There was quite often a bit of if there's a marker half back, they'd chip short to the winger, pushing up the ground a bit more, which is contrast to a few different sides we've seen. So Dersma scoring 97 points. He was another one on my cut list, and he made it into my keeper list over the weekend. So
I feel like Dersma sort of burst onto the scene when he debuted, and then maybe dropped off a little bit, but I think he'll be back now. I think he's going to have a decent year, I reckon.
Yeah, I agree. Well, he needs to anyway, essentially, because he might not have too much left after that if he doesn't.
Well, that's it. Like, he bursts onto the scene and then sort of feels like he's sort of tapered off a little bit. Yeah, so it's time. It's time for him, isn't it?
Absolutely. Jason Hall-Francis, won't talk about him too much, but he had 81 points. Just did enough to show us he could be an 70 to 80 averaging forward this year. I reckon at least 70 minimum if he plays that much midfield time. And he should get plenty of it at Port Adelaide. So, and then for the future, sky's the limit with him. We know he's number one draft pick, so we don't need to chat about him too much, but can be a handy forward this year. Kane Farrell pretty much did the same as last week, where he absolutely monstered the first quarter and then went missing. So he had 41 points in the first quarter and then only 68 for the game. And I think he just cops a bit of attention after he gets those hot starts. Just something he's got to learn to deal with, because when he can shake that, he's got the traits to be a fancy gun. So.
Yeah, he does. And a gun on the field too. Like, he's got such a good foot. Yeah. Like, his kicking is great. Yeah. And that's, I think, why he's going to be copping the attention, because clubs know how good of a leg he's got.
He's going to be one of those players that they shut down in that half-back line when the forward tag comes to him. But
absolutely.
He's got to learn how to deal with that, and if he does, he could be a pretty handy player. And we'll finish with Scott Lycett, because there's a lot of question about him. He battled, but he had low time on ground, and if you're worried about Teakle was probably even worse than he was, really. So I think he's still the number one ruck. He came up against Darcy, who's just like an absolute gun, coming off essentially a year off. And I think he just battled with match fitness. One player as a result of this, I think, is Charlie Dixon. Keep your eye on him as a forward, because he was looking like the backup ruck option, and he spent a fair bit of time in there as well. So if Port do go with Lycett as number one, and they do find that Teakle's probably not quite at the level, or who's the other one? Sam Hayes. Yeah. He's not quite at the level. They might roll with Charlie Dixon as the backup, and he's always been pretty handy when he goes in there. So.
I think that's a worry that we're not even barely mentioning Sam Hayes. Like, where is he?
Oh, he's gone. He got enough games last year, but just
talented
didn't show
junior.
anything. Yeah,
I think
won the Sandful Best and Fairest.
I think he was a dual Australian, like as an under 18.
Yeah, hasn't come on the way. Probably.
Yeah, no, he hasn't.
But yeah, I think if
he's had injury problems, haven't helped him.
Yeah, I think if things go the way I'm thinking that might happen, I think Dixon might be the backup ruck to start off with. So yeah, wait and see what happens there. But if he does, he could be a pretty handy forward pickup later on in your drafts because I don't think many people will be touching him. All right, well, you're about to debut your first match review. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good.
All right,
let's get into it.
Brisbane versus Geelong.
Geelong.
What'd you see?
Well, you go into the game and the first person you're looking for is Ashcroft, for me at least. 97 points. He was really good. I think he got about 13 CBAs or something around the mark, about half of the percent of bounces he went to. And the thing with him is like he just knows how to get 2 or 3 possessions in 10 seconds, sort of thing. Like really quick fire handball and then gets it back again, then a kick or something like that. Like it's like Dacos. He just knows where to be to get the ball, like consecutive times in a play. And that bodes really well for fantasy. There was no Lyons, no Zorko, no Berry. But I still think he's good enough to get midfield minutes. He's just that good.
Yeah.
You know,
to be honest, I don't even know if those players affect him.
Yeah, and he tackled really well, which I think is a really good sign. Like he tackled hard, cracked in really hard. But yeah, he knows how to find the uncontested ball, which will be really good for fantasy.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't think we need to touch on it too much. You've summed it up perfectly. Kid's gonna be a gun.
He already is.
I think in the mock draft he went with pick 52.
Yeah, right. That's interesting, isn't it?
That's about right. I actually do have the ADP data up here. Let's see where he's going in draft. So this is kind of most of this was done before this weekend when people saw him. His average draft position is 55, so that's about right, really.
Be interesting to see when did Dacos go?
Nick Dacos. He went in the first round.
Yeah, right.
So, he's averaging 8.
Be interesting to see where he went last year because I think Ashcroft might even be slightly ahead, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the next one we've got down is Connor McKenna, 46 points, playing sort of halfback, familiar role that we saw at Essendon. I wrote down that he might be a bit rusty early, but I'm not even sure he's best 22. What do you reckon?
Who are we talking about? Sorry, Connor McKenna.
Connor McKenna. I think Wilmot and him are battling out for a similar spot.
So
and
I didn't see a second of this game, but last week it just looked like they were trialling a lot of players on that wing. Yeah. What was his role in this game? Was that halfback? Same sort of role as what he did at Essendon.
It
looked like there was so many players, like because then Cam Rayner was there.
Yeah, I don't know
Darcy, with Wilmot there as well. Like it was interesting that it just felt like they were just playing 3 guys vying out for one spot. I've got Wilmot down. We'll talk about him as well. He scored 43. I thought he looked okay without really scoring super high. I think maybe they're looking to get him up the ground a little bit more wing than McKenna. I think McKenna's more halfback. Yeah. Wilmot, I think they're using on the wing. I don't know. He's a kick first player, which is good. But I'm not sure he'll be a high scorer. I think though he probably is best 22. But job security is a bit shaky. Always will be at Brisbane. Yeah. Especially now that Cam Rayner looks like he's going to be playing down back. Yeah. He only scored the 38 points, but he did look at stages, early on particularly, he looked quite good down there, quite damaging as sort of like an attacking halfback. That was probably the most obvious position change you sort of saw from that game. I thought he looked damaging at times. It's not a role he's played before. Like I can't remember seeing him juniors play defence. I liked him the week before a lot more because I did see the third quarter, a bit of the third quarter and the last quarter of this, and it was pretty quiet. When I saw him, just kind of felt like he was a little bit lost. I think he's still finding his way, down there. It would be hard playing like a third tall forward, sort of power mid to go on to back down defence. It'd be tough. Cam Rayner was the last of my so I had 2 out of 3 of my last keep spots I narrowed it down to. It was Warple, Dersma and Cam Rayner. And I dropped Cam Rayner. Rayner got the flick. I think that's... Do you reckon that's made the right decision? No, I think that's right because it probably will... If he's going to play half-back in the seniors, it's going to take a while for him to get up to speed. And even then, I'm not sure he's a high scorer. I love the role for fantasy. It's just that I'm not sure if Cam Rayner's the right guy for it. It's a good role. Yeah, you're right. He's Cam Rayner. Yeah, you're right there. Yeah. Next one I got down is Harris Andrews. Now, just put a disclaimer in there. I'm not saying pick him, but he did score 100 points, and he was actually everywhere. You got to tip the cap to these guys. He was everywhere. Sort of without Geelong playing like
genuine like key forward. They didn't have Hawkins or Cameron. He sort of chopped things off really well, like he does, and found plenty of the ball. I think he had 20 touches or something like that.
Yeah.
And no, he's not going to score anywhere near this or consistently.
I'm with you. Tip the cap.
Yeah, fair enough, and move on. One we will talk about a bit longer though is Tanner Bruin.
Oh, here we go.
He scored 74 points. Now, the question with him is will he play the same role as he did in this game, like for real, when the real season starts?
Yeah.
I don't think he will, but I was still really impressed with how he played in this game. 48% CBA attendance, so about half of the CBAs he went to, and he played much more inside than I thought he would.
Way more than I expected this whole preseason.
But just when you look at him play and you compare it to when he was at the Giants, he almost is playing with a refreshed mindset, I reckon.
Yeah, okay.
Like I think he looks quite happy at Geelong.
Yeah.
And I think if he can keep this up, he might force his way into more CBAs in the real stuff. But he was really good, really impressive. Tackled well. I think he had 7 tackles, which really helps his score as well. I like him actually at the moment. He's probably in my classic side, but
he's one of those underpriced players.
Yeah, I actually quite like him. I hope he can score well because
he's listed as a forward, isn't he?
Yeah, he's at my F4 spot.
Yeah, nice. That's not actually a bad option. Yeah, I reckon he's worth giving that 4 status.
It's a bit of a punt. I don't know if he'll stay there. But at the moment he's in there.
I think given that 4 status for keeper leagues anyway, he's definitely worth a punt. ADP of 180 at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to rock it up after this weekend.
Yeah, I reckon. And in terms of future, when Guthrie and whatnot, Duncan will then not going to stay around forever.
Yeah.
When they do go, I think he will get midfield time. He's a midfielder.
Yeah, I agree. Long term, that's where he's going to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. A couple more from Geelong we got down here. Ollie Dempsey scored 54. Reckon we'll see a little bit of him this year as a small forward. Really dangerous player. One to watch for sure. And then Cooper White didn't come on till late, but he had 28 points, 8 touches, all kicks, and 358 metres gained, which is average of 44 per touch.
Wow.
So he went out there and kicked the ball almost 50 metres every time he got it. Again, like going to be tricky to break into. He's behind a few.
Yeah.
But I do like what he brings.
Yeah, okay.
And the other one I had down is Ollie Henry. Sort of an almost game from him. When he gets it all together, he's going to be a gun, but fantasy-wise, I'm not sure about it.
Neither of the Henrys I'm really sold on fantasy-wise, but yeah, they look like they got talent for sure.
Talent to burn, but can it all come together for him?
All right, we'll move on to the St Kilda versus Essendon game. We'll talk about Essendon in a second, but what I did notice in this game was Essendon just could be a fantasy-friendly team. Because it's quite a windy game, they had no problems just chucking an extra man in defence. And I think I heard the commentators say that they were one of the better kicking teams last year in terms of percentage and stuff like that. And it looked like they actually had no problems just chipping around defence and trying to hit small targets, which is a stark contrast to a lot of the other clubs at the moment. So just one thing to look at with Essendon, like whilst they might not be the best, on the actual field and actually winning games, fantasy-wise, there could be, some decent numbers. And I'll talk about some of their players in a second, but St Kilda, look, Mason Wood was best on ground by a mile. Had 137 points, and he lost his forward status because he played so much time on the wing last year, but he actually looks like he might be a decent scoring midfielder. He had 15 marks on the wing, like, Richo type stuff, like from back in the day. You're probably too young to remember Richo.
I don't remember Richo.
yeah, but when Richo...
He's just a commentator.
Yeah, when he used to... I think it was his last season, he went on the wing. He was like centre forward his whole career. Went on the wing for his last season and just averaged 100 in fantasy and just marked everything that came his way, and it kind of reminded me a bit like him, really.
Is he playing like a Rewalt role? Nick Rewalt?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, pretty similar type thing. Yeah,
just a huge
on a wing,
tank.
On a wing and just runs up and down all day. Yeah. So lost his forward status, and everyone was saying he'd go back forward this year, but I don't know if that's going to happen, to be honest, especially with Billings out now. Yeah. He might be the one who takes over. So, yeah, Mason Wood,
137, pretty hard to ignore, really.
Yeah, seriously, I reckon he's good and almost good enough for your mid-7, your last midfielder on the field. If you're playing him there, you could do a lot worse, I reckon, if he puts up performances like that. Wait and see, but last year, even he was impressive as well. He was good on that wing, so yeah, just keep him in the back of your mind. Speaking of guns, so Nazaya Wanganeen Millera, 107 points. Played more on a wing last year, moved him back to halfback this whole preseason, played there, looks so settled in that position, just absolutely oozes class. He's a mid-only in fantasy this year, but he'll get defender status pretty soon if he plays that. When he does, kid's going to be a jet. You've obviously looked at him a lot in this underage stuff. What do you think of him?
Oh, well, that's it. What you see is what you get from him. He's a super smooth mover. The way he runs, he just He's so good.
But it's like the foot skills now as well.
Yeah,
like he just kind of rolls onto his leg and hits his target.
It looks like
so natural.
It's not lazy's not the word at all, but it looks easy.
He makes it look easy.
Looks really easy for him.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan, so he's one I'm going to be targeting in drafts coming up. That's Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller for those who missed at the start. But Callum Wilkie, he's one of my favourites. He's one of the keeper league boys, really. One of those guys who's always going to be on a waiver wire or he's always going to be in a draft pool. No one's kind of keeping him. But he pops up every now and puts some good scores up. Just a good battler. 88 points. I don't need to talk about him too much. We talked about him on the St Kilda show a few weeks ago. He's got a good floor, so he doesn't really go below 60 very often, which is pretty handy to have, and can put up some good scores here and there. So Callum Wilkie is just one I think is worth padding out your side with in defence. Mitch Owens, used in midfield a lot last year, had a lot of CBAs towards the end of the season. Played predominantly forward in this game. Kicked 3 goals, though. I didn't love the role for fantasy because he's a bit of a taller lad.
Yeah, that's one thing I took from the game. He's huge.
He kind of just rolled in front of packs and took marks and stuff like that. So I think it's something that will be pretty easily shut down, but should hold forward status for a while and just kind of want to stash until he goes back into that midfield role. Should be best 22 though, I think. So could get some good experience this year and build for the future. Liam Stocker coming across from Carlton looks handy enough, 79 points. Just not sure if he fits into that best 22, but he's always been someone we've kept our eye on since he rose up the draft a few years ago. Jack Bytel was the second to last St Kilda player. A lot of people were asking questions about him on Twitter throughout the week. So essentially 70 points. Windhager went down pretty early and he came on and did an accountable job on Parrish. Windhager's kind of their designated tagger these days. Had seven tackles to kind of play in that role, which helped boost his score. Only played 60% on time on ground. We know that his fitness was an issue. He actually had to do a mini preseason within the year. Don't think he even got a game last year, but he was way too unfit to even play last year, they reckon. So he looks a lot slimmer, a lot fitter. Looked good in this game. Still not sold because I think he was playing someone else's role. But,
job security is the issue again.
Yeah, exactly. But look, in the past he's shown that he can score. It's just whether he can get a consistent crack at it. Right now, given it's preseason, given that there was an injury early, I think he might just be outside the best 22, but keep an eye on him if he comes back in. Ben Patton had 65 points. He's listed as a defender, but basically played on the wing all day as well. So he could be a Billings replacement too. So just could be handy. Maybe just one, you'll get him so late in drafts that no one will be thinking about him. So he's one you could pick up late and he could be okay. Just given his role wasn't too bad. Moving on to Essendon now. Like I said, they were a lot more fantasy friendly than a lot of the teams I watched, just in the way that they played. Don't know if they carry that in the preseason, but like I said, they were more than happy to chip around defence. And Jordan Ridley was a real beneficiary of that. 107 points, and everyone's going to say, well, we probably had heaps of kick-ins. He only took 2 of the kick-ins. Yeah. Now, a couple of years ago when he averaged 80, he had all the kick-ins, and that's how he got there. So this kind of just goes to show how much they were chipping around. He took 12 marks in defence, so they were just kind of getting it to him each time. No problems chipping around defence. With a role like this, and if they play like that come the season, he could be back in fantasy. So, he's going to be real undervalued given his last
I hope he's back. He's one of my favourite players, Jordan, really. I hope he doesn't have to play such an accountable role. Like
That's what happened last year.
We saw him play key defender, and I just don't think he's a key defender. Especially with my fantasy goggles on, I'd love to see him as a third tall, can chop it off. Yeah,
it was interesting. Mason Redmond didn't score as well in this game as well, so he kind of was going a bit more accountable as well. Right. So they might switch back. So Redmond owners could be a bit nervous as well. Just don't trust anything I see in the preseason, that's all. Especially on a windy day like this that wasn't the best conditions and stuff like that. It could be anything, really. It could be anything. Will Setterfield. 21 points. It just looks clear that they've just got him in for a reason. Yeah. Looks to be their kind of contested ball winner. I think he had the most contested possessions for the game. 8 centre-bounce attendances, so it doesn't look great, but a lot of the time he started on the wing and just pushed straight in and played as like a fifth midfielder type thing. I don't think he's a bad option for M7 either. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so Essendon have loved Setterfield for as long as he's been on their radar. So when they drafted McGrath with pick 1, they were considering McCluggage and Setterfield.
Yeah.
And Setterfield obviously went to the Giants at the academy and whatnot, but they obviously love him. And I think finally he's got there. They obviously didn't draft him, but finally he's got there. And I reckon they're going to give him the licence to be that bigger body that they've needed since Joe Watson probably.
Yeah.
I hope he plays heaps of inside because I hated seeing him on the wing at Carlton. He's just not a winger.
Well, because I've only ever seen him as a winger. You probably followed his junior stuff more than I did and stuff like that.
I think he's just when he's given the role inside.
No, I agree, man.
I just reckon he's an inside mid.
He looks like it. So yeah, like just that contested ball winner. Won't be a huge fantasy scorer, but could go 80, 90, every now and then if all things go to plan. So one I like. And again, he's going super late in drafts. He was in a draft pool when I did a dynasty with essentially 350 odd players already taken. He was still in the pool. So, and someone got him in the third round. So yeah, not too bad. Brendan Zerk-Thatcher, look, he's a preseason tease from memory anyway. I think I remember him carving up last preseason or the preseason before. He had 82 points. Just plays that halfback role so nicely and just is good for fantasy. It's just that you've got three of them. You've got McGrath in there, you've got Redmond, and you've got Ridley already in there, plus Hine too. Yeah, it's like, can you fit Zerk-Thatcher in?
I think they like him. I think they do like him internally, but interesting. Wait and see.
Too many players of his type. That's the issue, I think. I love this kid, Archie Perkins.
Gun.
80 points. So he started forward, but then went into the midfield pretty early and kind of stayed there for the rest of the day. I think Caldwell going down in the second half boosted the midfield numbers in the second half. But he worked really hard just to get into spaces and just to receive the ball, really, which is what we want to see for fantasy. And yeah, he's just a classy player, listed as a forward this year. He could be a breakout contender. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he provides a lot of what they don't have. Like, he's very different to Merritt and Parrish.
Yeah.
He's just X-factor guy that can go forward, take a grab. He's almost like, I reckon he's a little bit like Heaney when he goes forward, and that he can be like freakish aerially.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he goes into the midfield, that's what we want from a fantasy perspective.
Absolutely.
I hope he gets mid-minutes.
I'm kind of the opinion that I just hope he gets like a even split to keep that forward status.
That's all.
I just want him to keep that forward status because I reckon he's a type that could do damage just with minimal minutes in there and stay forward. But I think he could be a big scorer if he goes in there. But we'll wait and see. Massimo D'Ambrosio. Well, I always say D'Ambrosio, but apparently it's D'Ambrosio.
D'Ambrosio,
Doesn't make much sense. Well, anyway, why do you put
what's the comma there? What's the apostrophe there for?
But anyway. 79 points. At the end of last year, we saw him in the forward line, but it was just great to see him back in defence. He's another one back there, really fantasy-friendly halfback flanker. Really nice leg. It looks like they want to use him with the ball in hand. And again, like I said, Essendon's game plan was super friendly for him. It's just, how do we fit them all in?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Especially now that McGrath's looks like he's going to be playing halfback.
And look good back there too.
Yeah, he did. So, I think that's his spot. Like,
absolutely.
As much as it'd be nice to have him as a mid, like, he's a halfback.
They've got enough mids too.
He's a halfback, but they took a halfback with pick one. I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah. Move on to the next game, Sydney versus Carlton. The Lizard, Nick Blakey. 76 points, almost the general in defence. He looked like the most kind of senior head back there. I know Jake Lloyd was back there and everything, but he looked like the go-to man back there. He was the one barking.
They really trust him.
Yeah,
like, they really trust him with the kicks and whatnot, and he can run.
Yeah, he started off as too good for the podcast after his first 3 rounds last year. Came back to the podcast because he didn't do
fell
well
off,
the second
fell
half.
off a cliff.
Yeah, but then I think he'll be back on the 2G4P wagon pretty soon, I reckon. Another young player, South Australian, Dylan Stevens, 73 points. He just looked more comfortable out there than I've seen him previously. Just didn't look as lost at patch of the game. Stayed in the game for the whole time.
Yeah,
really.
He's one that looks like he genuinely has had a good off-season.
Yeah, 100%. He still plays that outside role. Not going to have a huge ceiling. Like, I think when he puts everything together in 2 or 3 years' time, he could average like 90, but never going to be that 100 plus, I don't think. I don't think he's got a huge ceiling, but I think he still could go another level this year and, start to push towards those 80 averages. Probably more likely 70s, I think.
I think 70s, but
yeah, could push towards it anyway. Another developing youngster, Logan McDonald, had 72 points. He was just a presence up forward. I don't know. When he first got drafted, I thought he looked like he was probably 30 already. Like, he's just got like a bit of an old man face. but look, his body just looks a lot more mature now. He got really good hands. We know he's a talent. I think he's just probably one worth considering picking up late, just given his talent. Could kick a few goals, take a few grabs. Could be their next key forward. Will be their next key
needs
target
to be.
up there.
Yeah, absolutely. So when Buddy goes down, he's the man.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah,
and he's looking 3rd year in the system now, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully he takes a good step. Yep.
Yeah, I think he will. Matty Roberts, drafted last year, 67 points. He rotated on the wing, a little bit inside time. There's just a lot of battle for spots on the wings with McInerney and Stevens. It looked like they were the main 2 guys in there.
Yeah.
I think Mills needs to come back in as well to that midfield.
Absolutely.
Probably pushes him out.
Yeah.
But promising signs for the future. Didn't look like too lost in there anyway. So
I think he did look a bit lost on debut last year.
Absolutely he did. Yeah.
I think that's pretty fair to say. I think he had one touch.
So he made a good joke about he had the most points per minute, as in he was pointing where to go.
Okay.
Barking orders and stuff like that.
So I mean, hopefully he's progressed a little bit since then. But yeah, again, I think spots is going to be the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, in terms of guys that probably should break out as well, Peter Laddams. He had 62 points from 56% time on ground and looked like he was definitely their number one ruck. He just kept getting hit. Like, he caught one to the face, caught one to, like, the ribs, like, just kept getting battered and bruised. And by the end, they just pulled him off.
That's not what you want on a pre-season.
I don't know what the go was, but it looked like he was absolutely carving and just kept copping, like, everything. And then in the end, they just pulled him. So just in case, I think they just need him to be fit for round one.
Yeah.
So, and I think he will be. It's just he kept copping stupid knocks and they just took him off. So, like, 62 doesn't look good, but for the time on ground and for what actually happened in the circumstances, I think Peter Laddams is probably the number one ruck come round one. So owners out there should be pretty happy with that one.
Yep, absolutely.
Moving on to the Blues, not a lot to talk about. Jack Silvani is just one of those guys. Can pop up every now and then and score well. He had 80 points in this game. Can kick goals, rotate the ruck. He's just a handy player to own. So keep that in mind when you come to your drafts this week. Charlie Curnow, kind of the same, probably a bit better, but 77 points. Like, this is around his scoring range. He'll average around 77, I think, maybe 80. Low 80s. So it's just what he does. He's another handy one to own in a year where you're not going to find too many good forwards. He's definitely a good one to own. Do you know much about Alex Sincotta?
I don't really. I wish I could say I know him, but I really don't.
Came out of nowhere like a few weeks ago. Now everyone's talking about him just because he's probably in line to debut round one.
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, with Zach Williams out the side, plays that halfback role. Okay. He was what do they call them? The supplementary signing picks or whatever?
Something like that. Sounds all right.
Something like that. But anyway, supplementary something player. I think SSP, whatever it is. Plays the right sort of game for fantasy, and I think he'll get a few games early. Long term, don't know, but he'll definitely be in the mix for round one. It looks like he's got a little bit of a fantasy game, but don't go too early on him because there's probably going to be a hype there now, I think.
Yeah.
I know you're itching to talk about some rookies, so I'll bring a few to the table here.
Yep.
Ollie Hollands. So he had 68 points. Showed he can handle at the level on the wing.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
He looks comfortable, I reckon. Saw a bit of this game. Yeah, looks really comfortable. I think, he's the one that, I don't know if he'll play round one, but
when you look at the wings from last year, he's competing with Lockie O'Brien, Zach Fisher.
Well, he's past Lockie O'Brien.
Akers is on the other wing, so lock that one. But that's really the two he's kind of competing with.
I think he might have a spot.
I reckon he does too. Yeah,
I think that's be good for the Blues perspective as well to get him games.
Yeah. They targeted players of his type in this preseason as well.
Absolutely.
So Jackson Binns was the other one, I think.
And we're going to talk about another one, Lockie Cowan. Similar sort of role. I really like Lockie Cowan as a sort of longer term option. Doherty's 29 now.
Yeah.
Williams is obviously pretty injury prone. I reckon Cowan's going to have that role when those guys sort of fade off.
Cowan was one of the better fantasy scorers in the preseason, wasn't he? Sorry, in the
last year he was definitely. I think he won the Morris Medal over there from Tassie.
He didn't even know what it was, apparently. He won it and he's like, don't even know what that is.
Well, he's from Tassie after all.
Exactly.
But stash option, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play some games this year. But want to keep on the radar
halfback
for sure.
Option, definitely stash. Those
can
two,
play
Oliver,
wing. Yep.
Those two options there. Oliver Hollands, Lockie Cowan, just absolute stash options.
Yep.
Get them when you can. They'll take a year or two probably.
They'll be good though. They'll be good.
But definitely be good. We'll comment on the ruck combination. It's what every owner didn't want to see. It was the DeConing Pitney combo, and it was just disgusting. They combined for 80 points together.
Oh,
so
God.
about 40 each, really, both in the 40s. So you want to see one of them ruck solo, preferably DeConing ruck solo.
Absolutely, DeConing. Yeah,
I'm not sure we're going to see it, and it's probably not great for fantasy. Just going to pause the recording there and play the Manscaped ad. So then I don't have to do it later. Sorry, stream watchers. Hey listeners, just interrupting the podcast here. Autumn is in the air and the leaders in below the waist grooming are here to make sure that your foliage isn't the only thing shedding its excess leaves this season. Make sure to trim your bush with the best and let Mother Nature do the rest. Join 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code KEEPER20. Remember, that's 20% off and free shipping with the code KEEPER20. And remember, when you trim the weeds, the tree always stands a little bit taller. Oh, I have no shame. It's the whole ad dedicated to pubes. Anyway, let's get stuck back into it. What are we up to? West Coast Adelaide. Oh, back on you.
Back onto me.
You ready?
Yep.
Let's do it.
All right.
Hold on. All right, Tommy, you had the opportunity to watch your beloved Crow boys. What do they call them? The Crom these
Crom.
days. Yeah. How'd they go?
Oh, they really impressed me actually. Like they look good. Like, and I genuinely think they look good. They played a really frenetic game where pressure was just paramount, and they used sort of the small forwards that they've got now, Rankin, Rochelle, McAdam. They really looked to hunt, and they really tackled super hard. I was very impressed with them. Up against West Coast, who look like they're going to be bottom 2, I'd say again. But we'll start with Ruben Jimdy, and he was really good, like really, really good. Scored 68 from, I think he had about 56% time on ground. Just looks so comfortable. Really, actually, he's kind of one of the few West Coast players that really caught the eye. Like, just cracked in super hard. He's a massive kid. I think he's a lock-in classic.
So what role did he play?
He sort of played half back.
Yeah, good.
But geez, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him play some midfield.
Yeah, so that's been a talk.
He's a massive boy, really big unit. Saw him at the draft, and he was big then. Like, he surprised me with how big he was then, and he looks like he's put on a few kilos over pre-season as well. Like, just pure muscle. He's a massive guy. Like, some of the contests he hit, like, I think he had one against, I can't remember, I think it might have been Rochelle.
Yeah.
But he went so hard, and it was a great contest, Rochelle as well, but geez, he's going to be a really good player, good player for them.
No, I'm pretty excited to see him, and again, a lot of classic interest because he's probably going to debut pretty early, but everyone's saying he's a lock for round one.
Round one.
I hope he gets a midfield spot one day, because he looks like a player that can from what we saw in junior stuff, he looked like a player who can do anything. So.
He's sort of like a bit similar to the next guy we're going to mention, Elliot Yeo. He's a big unit, can play halfback, inside mid.
Yeah.
That sort of has a few sort of similar traits. I think he's a decent kick as well. So, but yeah, the next guy, Elliot Yeo, scored 89 points from 67% time on ground.
God.
I think, I don't know if you call him a locking classic, but I think
he is. There's not going to be known teams out there without him.
Yeah. I had no fault really from his game.
Yeah.
Had a bit of halfback, bit of midfield. I think that's what he'll do. The only question with him is really durability. Like, can he keep the body on the park? Like, that's the only question mark I've got with him. Next guy is Dom Sheed, 78 points. Again, probably one of the better players from the Eagles on a pretty disappointing day. I don't think he really got out of sort of third, second gear. Like, I don't know if he was trying super hard, and the midfield did get smashed. But he'll be one of the main guys in the midfield there for the Eagles all year. Again, can he stay on the park? You'd hope so, because he's a decent option, I reckon. And the next guy, Shannon Hearn.
Oh, can I just jump in? There's so many people that are dropping him, because of his age and just not worth keeping.
Jeez.
120 points though. I think a lot of people are reeling after that one.
The ball was down there a fair bit, in fairness.
Yeah, true.
And to be honest, I didn't think he had his best game ball use wise. Kind of butchered it a bit sometimes, which is uncharacteristic for him because he's such a good ball user.
Yeah.
But yeah, just 11 marks. I mean, he reads it as well as anyone has for like 15 years now or something. 11 marks. Yeah, that really stood out for me. Like, he's getting a lot of the chip kicks as well.
Yeah.
Obviously they want the ball in his hand. And he scored super well. I think he'll score really well again this year. What do you reckon?
I think he's scoring well to be fine. It's just my fear that he gets to the maybe the fourth to last, second or third to last game in Optus Stadium, and he calls it quits. Yeah. He just does the retirement there and plays the kids for the rest. Hey, you talked before about Will Day you went to high school with him. Little fun fact: me and Shannon Hearn used to sit next to each other on the bus. Right. Anguston to Newry.
Righto.
Yep, so.
Anguston to Newry.
Yeah. So country lads. Does that make me old? Does that, you reckon? The oldest guy name, one of the oldest guys names.
Yeah, righto. Yeah.
Anyway.
Next guy, Liam Duggan, scored 108, 12 marks. I probably expect more of the same from him. I don't see how he's going to improve too much, but I don't think he regresses at all. But one I really want to talk about is Campbell Chesser. I know he's got some interesting classic, and I think he does get games this year reasonably early. Played a bit of halfback wing, which is his spot. Didn't score super well. 35 points reflects it, but I think if he can get on the park, he's another. It feels like all these West Coast guys. Injuries are such a problem, but
Always.
it feels like this is almost his first real it has been his first real AFL pre-season. He broke down last year. So hopefully he's over his injuries, because I think he is a good player, and he was a high draft pick for a reason. So if you can slot onto the wing or a half-back role, sort of get a...
I feel like the hype died down a bit this week, though.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't score well.
Yeah, maybe maybe it's just the scoring.
But I think
he looked so good last week, though.
He did. I think he... I want to say he's ahead of Alex Witherden at the moment.
Okay,
Witherden,
I've got down. Want to hear that?
Yeah, I know, but I think Witherden, like, I don't know, it just looks like he's out.
I'm kind of with you, because I don't think the coach loves him either.
I just don't think he's, and I think the same
Not
thing.
seeing this game at all.
Same thing. No, same thing sort of happened at Brisbane. Like I just. He's good, and when he's there, he scores well.
Racks it up, but just doesn't do a lot with it. Doesn't damage the opposition.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. All right, you want to talk about the Crows? Get into it.
Yeah, right.
You're itching.
Okay, so first one we got Sam Berry, 79 from 69% time on ground. But key for that, for me, was he only had 2 tackles.
Yeah, he usually had he averaged
He's good for 6 or 7 a game.
Yeah, I was going to say average heaps last year.
He's good for 6 or 7 a game. So what can he do if he, imagine if he laid 5 more tackles, that's a ton.
This tells me that he's not really trying.
Well, yeah, sort of. A bit of that. He pushed forward to kick a goal, which was good. Yeah. And he's one of the guys that's really behind the Crows, showing this great pre-season form. I think Berry's going to take his game to the next level. I don't see why he can't. He's now in that. He's definitely in that first ruck setup with, you've got Laird. You've got Laird.
Midfielder, to be honest. Apart from Laird,
he is. You've got Laird, Berry, and then one of Schoenberg, Rochelle, Rankin, Saligo, Sloan will go in there a little bit, although he played wing. He's going to get bulk CBAs, especially now that the next guy, Benny Keys, looks like he's playing a half forward role. Yeah, so
we saw him on the wall behind us.
We saw him. Yeah, we saw him play last year against Carlton, and he played a half forward role, and he got out the back. I think he kicked maybe 2 or 3, but in this he played a similar role and kicked 4 goals. Like, he just has a knack of, because of his such a high endurance base, he just gets out the back so easily. He could be good for a goal a game. I could see him kicking a goal a game, averaging a goal a game.
You don't see him averaging those lofty heights anymore, though.
No, he won't. I think his midfield game is over. I can't see him playing too much more midfield.
So what does that mean for possessions and scoring, really?
Well, obviously goes down.
Yeah.
It obviously takes a hit to his fantasy game, but from a Crows perspective, I think it's a good sign that he's not going to be playing midfield minutes, because we've got enough of him.
I'm only pushing because all weekend Kays has been chirping that he's going to be top 6 forward.
Yeah, right. Well, I think he's a natural ball winner, and he does have that high endurance base, which means he'll get around to every contest and whatnot. But I think he's still fantasy relevant because he's got that forward status. Yeah. But
what is the average, do you think? Keep in mind, I think he averaged 55 as a forward last year, but apparently he was injured.
Yeah, can he average 85, 90? I reckon he...
I don't know about that. I reckon... Without a lot of those just bomb it kicks from the midfield.
Yeah.
I don't know if he gets any of those.
Maybe 85 is... Maybe a bit.
You heard it here first. Tell me,
I reckon he's still a natural ball winner. So
there's a few crow-coloured goggles on.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe. And if we do have a couple of injuries, he's straight back in the midfield, I suppose. So
yeah, true. That's fair. He probably will have some stints in the midfield. So could push that average up a little bit.
Oh, he'll have stints in the midfield, but his CBAs won't be anywhere near as high. Yeah. The next guy is Josh Rochelle. His CBAs will be higher. He played sort of that role where he's sort of in the midfield. He got a lot of midfield minutes.
Yeah.
Scored 53 points, and he's sort of played that receiver role on the outside of the midfield. Got a few CBAs, tackled really well. I think he's always been a decent tackler. It's just always it's been the intent for him. I think sometimes he can go a little bit missing with his intensity.
Yeah.
But I reckon he's in for a huge year. Interesting to see how many midfield minutes he does get. I think he's more of a... I've always sort of said this. I think he's more of a mid-forward, and I think Rankin is more of a forward-mid.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
And Rankin scored 59 points. Probably didn't set the world on fire. Kicked his goal. Applied heaps of pressure. But yeah, I'm not sure how many midfield minutes he does get. I think Rochelle's probably more of a mid. And the next guy I've got down here is Luke Pedler, and he's one that is really relevant across all sort of fantasy levels. Scored 42 points from 55% time on ground. He looked really good, actually. Looked like he's ready to sort of cement his spot in the best 22, which he hasn't been able to do yet. Such a high pick. I know GWS were, when he was in his draft year, GWS was circling him. They really wanted him with one of their picks in the first round of the draft. Looked really good. But he's sort of probably going to play more of a half forward role. who can pinch hit in the middle more so than the other way around. But he's tough as nails, decent kick. I think probably some encouraging signs there from Pedler.
Yeah. Do you reckon he plays forward, though, probably?
He plays forward.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him play more midfield in time, but maybe not this year.
Yeah,
I think there's
more of a stash option.
Yeah, more of a stash option.
Yeah.
Max Michelani looks like with Josh Worrell injured, he might get a round one debut, I reckon.
Can't see him being a fantasy scorer, though.
Never has been.
Nah.
Probably never will be.
Right, move on.
think Ben Hart, though, sort of for Crows fans. Think Ben Hart, similar sort of lockdown role.
You're really getting excited for these Crow boys, aren't you?
Yeah, I am a bit. I've written a few down here. Oh, one's Matt Crouch.
Yeah.
Matt Crouch.
29 points. Tell us about it.
I mean, he's always going to be a good scorer when he gets on the park.
So he didn't play the full game, did he?
Nah, he played coming on for 15% time on ground.
Yeah.
But he had 9 touches.
Yeah, wow, okay.
But he's going to be a good scorer, but he's outside best 22 at the moment.
Yeah.
Fogg was good, kicked his 4, looks dangerous, looks really good. Mitch Hinge played on the wing.
The Minge.
Sort of with Seaman done now, unfortunately.
Yeah. He played a bit of this role last year,
Yeah,
didn't he?
and he's one of our best ball users.
Actually, it was him and Haitley kind of vying out for
He's
a bit
better
of
than
it.
Haitley.
Yeah.
Absolutely better than Haitley. He's really tough and, one of our best kicks. I do like him. And he's definitely best 22 because he can go half-back, sort of switch to Dawson.
Yeah.
O'Brien didn't come up against much, unfortunately, with the Eagles rucks.
He's a 2G4P player for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Saligo is another one who probably will get midfield minutes. They really like him, but he's in that rotation. He's probably he's one of my favourite players. He probably could be my favourite player to watch at the moment. He's just so classy.
He feels like a player who can play a lot of different roles.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one touch at ground level, uses the ball really well.
Yeah.
Paddy Parnell.
Yeah, he's one I'm interested in.
Yeah. It looks like he's probably competing for a spot with Chase Jones.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably passed him.
Yeah, I reckon so. From what he showed last year because he was like paper thin, he just kept getting knocks and things like that. I think he had a corky that kept him out for 3 weeks. But
yeah.
Did he look a bit bigger, Parnell? Did he put on a bit of size?
Yeah, he does, but it's still that's it. And then the other one I've got down is Harry Schoenberg.
Get him off. No, we've got a bit of history with Harry Schoenberg in this podcast.
He looked all right. He looked pretty good, actually. He's another one. It looks like the Crows are sort of assembling a few that can go through there now, which is good because it hasn't been that way for a while.
When I turned over, I think he was lining up on the wing a bit.
Yeah, a bit of wing.
But pushing into that midfield.
Bit of wing. And he's at his best when he's running carrying, sort of a link up in the midfield.
Okay. I feel like they're just trying to find a role for him.
Yeah.
Because they know
he's best 22, but I think he maybe more wing than inside. I don't know.
Yeah. Any disclaimers from this? I thought you see you've got no Thilthorpe written down here.
Yeah, it was interesting to see no Thilthorpe. I think he won't get. He's not going to play round 1, I don't reckon.
Well, in the media they were saying he's going to be number 1 ruck this year.
Yeah.
On the podcast we were saying like in the future we reckon he's the number 1 ruck.
Yeah.
And then I saw a few media reports saying he's going to be the number 1 ruck, and I was like, here we go. What we've said's come to fruition early.
Yeah.
But yeah, not seen in this game.
Yeah, I think it's tough with Thilthorpe. I think we'll see him probably get a few games in the sample as a ruck to build him into the year. But yeah, then I'd almost prefer to see, from a Crows perspective, I'd almost prefer to see him and Himmelberg. So Thilthorpe and Himmelberg be the rucks rather than Rob. But from a fantasy perspective, Rob's got them covered easily.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game. GWS versus the Gold Coast. Tom Green was your first player you got written here.
Yeah, absolutely everywhere. In and under, 34 touches, 95 points. It's unfortunate that he's a handball happy type mid. So he's like Tom Mitchell, where he's just a handball first. That's the game he plays. But rightly so, because his vision with his hands is unbelievable. Like he's a big unit, so he stands up and tackles. Always has been able to get his arms above the tackler.
Yeah.
So he can still fire off that handball. I really, really like him. Particularly with Hopper and Taranto gone now. He's the
next one in.
Yeah, I reckon so.
34 touches is a bit less than the 50 he supposedly had the week before, though.
Yeah, well, that
34, they still take that.
You take that any day of the way, absolutely. The next one, Finn Callahan. I mentioned him at the top of the show, but 88 points from 66% time on ground. I've written down that he's a special talent. I think he is because he played a wing role, and I think that's where we'll see him mostly this year. But he's a big kid, and he reads the ball so well. Like he took a few intercept marks, which is really handy. Put the ball up to some good spots with his kicking. Really beautiful user, smooth mover. He should play every game he's fit for because he's an absolute gun. Such a high pick and for good reason. Really, really like him.
So you reckon he kind of stays on the outside at the moment, but you reckon long term?
Long term, I think he's an inside mid. But he'll always have that outside element to his game, which is probably a good thing.
It's good for fantasy, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Just win a few more contested pill, you're right. Lockie Whitfield is apparently back to his old tricks.
Yeah. So he's one that's probably going to be too good for the podcast.
Oh, way too good. Even though he did probably worst year last year, he's still too good, yeah.
Yeah, he's way too good. Back to half back. I think Kingsley's sort of simplifying things, moving people back to their proper roles finally. So half back, that's where he looks his best, I reckon. Jack Riccardi scored 73, sort of made the most of his touches.
Yeah, he'll be a roller coaster, but can kick a few bags here and there.
That'd be a headache for some weeks.
Yeah, I've got him in one of my leagues.
Again, Cogs is going to be way too good, but he's back to midfield.
Yep.
Ash looked really good actually at half back.
Yeah, he's an interesting one.
Yeah.
So we kind of flagged that all pre-season.
Yeah, Ash looked really good. The half back line at GWS looks really dangerous. You got Isaac Cumming, Lockie Ash.
Did Cumming score okay in this game?
Yeah, he did.
So they all kind of ranked up a little bit.
I reckon, he looks better in defence than what he's been playing previously. He looks really settled back there.
Yeah, it always felt like that was going to be his most
found heaps of the ball, all over it. I really liked his game. Jacob Weir is another one. He sort of looks like he'll get a fair bit of senior games this year.
Yeah.
On sort of a wing.
Yeah, he looks like an outside type when he played
he's definitely
year.
outside.
Yeah.
Will never be an inside sort of player. Sort of half back, mostly wing role, I think, for him.
I think he showed it early on he could score okay.
Yeah, I think okay is probably the right word.
Yeah, 70s and things like that.
Yeah, bits and pieces. Pretty decent. And the other one there for the GWS is Harry Himmelberg.
Yeah, what was his role? Because everyone's
back up forward. Back up forward, which is not what we want to hear for fantasy. But
absolutely not.
The kick 3 looks pretty good. Yeah. Probably GWS are better with him up forward, but not that we like to see it from a fantasy perspective.
Yep.
So Jack Lukosius from Gold Coast, sorry.
Now, he wasn't up forward, are you saying?
No, he played wing.
Yeah, right.
Oh, sort of played wing forward role.
Okay.
So we did spend some time up forward, but looked a bit off it, to be honest. Dropped a couple of marks that he would normally take. Sort of I think he's good for the cause, good for the long run. But played that wing role. It's really he's so talented. I wish he would just sort of get it all together because he's one of the best junior players I've ever watched. He's
settled in a spot and just
absolutely. But the standout for Gold Coast to me was Sam Flanders.
Everyone's gonna be like, you listen to the Draft Doctors podcast.
Absolutely,
they just froth over him. So.
He's always been able to score like this when he's playing in the midfield.
Yeah,
it's just
so he played a midfield role.
He did.
Interesting because the league before it was a lot more forward.
Yeah, no, he played midfield, and I reckon he could piece together a decent average if he can play that role. Absolutely.
What do you think? Do you reckon he holds it?
I hope so. I think so. I reckon it's going to be tough because there's a few really big names in there now. Rao, Anderson, Took, Miller.
Yeah, it's a deep midfield, really.
It's a decent midfield. And you got Swallow and all those sort of guys. But he
could easily replace one of those though, like a Swallow type.
Yeah, another one is Alex Davies. Who I really like actually.
So do I.
He's a big-bodied mid, and he's sort of almost pure inside. But I reckon he'll be battling it out for a spot with Flanders, to be honest.
Well, I just like Davies because he's a forward listed this year as well, and we just know he's going to play midfield time.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, I just wanted to see one big score from Davies in the preseason to kind of fill me with a bit of confidence. We just didn't see it. That's all.
Yep. Matty Rao, look, such a big year for Matty Rao. Like he burst onto the scene and then sort of flatlined a little bit.
Just no outside game.
Yeah, no outside game at all.
Was it the same in this game?
Yeah, pretty much. 24 touches, 9 clearances. Such a good inside player, but lacks that outside ball to probably become a real beast of a fantasy player. But his tackling numbers and clearances were always getting good scores.
Yeah.
Ben King was back from an ACL, which was good, and I thought he looked pretty agile, pretty quick on the lead, which is good. Because he could have lost a bit of that through his injury.
Yeah.
Joel Jeffrey, I really like Joel Jeffrey. I reckon he's got something, adds something that they don't have in attack. Can play down back, but he played as a third tall forward. He's going to give defenders some headaches this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Kicked a couple on a pretty average day for GWS. Sorry, for the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They've got a few taller options now as well, but I don't know how he's going to go fantasy wise. But
fantasy probably not an option, but maybe late.
Yeah.
And the other one I got written down is Charlie Constable.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about him this pre-season.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of, I don't know about him. He looks like he's going to be couple of bad games and he's out of the side.
I reckon so as well, unfortunately.
He just struggles to use the footy. He gets it all right.
And we know
that's
that
not
they're
the
just
problem.
missing so many defenders as well. As soon as they're fit, they're probably going to come back and overtake him.
It's nice to be a nice thought to have him sort of in the side long for the whole season, but I just can't envision a season where he just doesn't get dropped.
Yeah,
like a couple of times.
I agree. And which
is unfortunate
with the depth that they've got as well in their halfbacks and things like that. It's going to be a difficult one. I think Darcy McPherson has been playing halfback as well. Is another one.
A little bit of halfback for McPherson
as well. So you got Elijah Hollands in your notes as well. How do you go?
Yeah, good. I thought he was pretty good. 69 points, 18 touches, 15 kicks, 5 marks, a couple of clearances when he went sort of into the middle. Still think he plays half forward for most of the year.
Okay. Yeah.
Just another one who I hope gets a clean run of it because he's such a
You kind of want him to play a half forward role this year so he gets that forward status back because he played on the wing a lot at the end of last year and it probably I don't know, he's less valuable as a wingman, so hopefully he can get a bit of forward time.
Absolutely. The thing I took out of this game from a team's perspective was I reckon GWS will be really good this year. I think they're playing a lot more attacking, and I think the players are back in their natural spots.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
Sort of thing.
Less messing around.
They can push for finals, I reckon.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's move on to the next game, Western Bulldogs versus North Melbourne. A few to talk about in this one. First of all, Aaron Norton had 102 points, kicked 4 goals. He's just worth owning for days like this, but he'll be a roller coaster as well. He's one of the better key forwards out there for fantasy scoring. Should average, mid to high 70s, maybe low 80s if he has a good season. So he's one to consider later on. A big talking point was Oscar Baker, obviously coming across from Melbourne, outside type, had 96 points. Started on the wing and managed to push forwards as well. Looked like he could be the one to fill Lockie Hunter's wing, really, which is probably bad news for the Toby McLean owners out there because, everyone's been raving about him all pre-season. But, didn't quite come to fruition on the weekend. I will say that Toby McLean did spend a lot of time forward and it felt like they rotated a few, like Anthony Scott went there a bit as well. It felt like they were kind of just testing a few people on that wing. I don't know what to make of it. But Oscar Baker, he looks like a real goer. Did you watch much of him at Melbourne or see much of him at Melbourne?
Bits and pieces. He is a dashing type. Yeah.
Yeah, and he attacks the ball hard, so he could be one that is on the wing for them round one.
I think,
so keep an eye on that one.
Maybe they play like a McRae, rotate McRae, Smith, those sort of names through to the wing and then have Baker on the other one maybe.
Yeah, perhaps. Just looking at the ADP ADP data here, Oscar Baker's not in the top 400 picks on average, so I reckon he might bump up a bit after this weekend. I honestly forgot he was even there, until a couple of weeks ago. Till we had Will Taylor on the podcast, Western Bulldogs fan. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember him.
No, he's decent, Oscar Baker. He'll get games this year.
Well, even watching him in Melbourne, in pre-season games and stuff, he looked like he had something. So, yeah. Anyways, this one's not too fantasy friendly, but Liam Jones had 88 points. He just intercepted everything. Just do not count on it every week because he'll be dour defender a lot of the weeks. Jamara Ugle-Hagan, though, so much talent in this kid. He is an absolute freak, so athletic. He had 85 points. 3 goals boosted his score up, but he's definitely capable. Do you think he can push to be a fantasy scorer given that he's a taller forward type?
Potentially. I think you'd need a decent amount of goals to do so. But he's so good to watch. He's an athletic freak.
Yeah, he's going to be a fun player to watch, that's for
Absolutely.
sure. Anthony Scott kicked 3 goals and he had to spend a bit of time on the wing as well, so a bit of midfield time for him. 73 points there. Handy, just don't really know if he's in the side round one. We'll have to wait and see with that one. I guess freakish talents we were talking about before. Sam Darcy is another one. He had 72 points. He started forward and kicked 2 goals, but basically what we all wanted to see, he was playing in the ruck towards the end. And I guess for fantasy-wise, we want to see him as their future ruckman. I know Tim English is young, and it might stifle him a little bit, but he's going to score the most fantasy points in the ruck, I think. Sam
Absolutely.
Darcy.
He's an absolute freak. To have the ability to play full back, full forward and in the ruck.
Some of the grabs he took up forward as well were pretty remarkable.
Guy's an absolute gun. I don't know how tall he is now, but jeez.
Yeah, he's huge. He could ruck. He did ruck in this game.
He will. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he could be like one of those kind of midfielder type rucks as well, just with his athleticism,
Yep, absolutely.
Moving on to some North Melbourne players. Luke McDonald had 96 points. It was a good role for fantasy. He's a captain this year, so I reckon you can expect an average around the 80 mark playing that half-back role, so won't talk about him too much. Tom Powell, massive pipes, 80 points, just looked at home in the midfield, I reckon, so he could be in for a breakout year. I'm not sure he's going to have the ceiling he did have as a junior because everyone talks about his underage scoring.
Junior stats are really impressive.
Yeah.
I love watching him as a junior.
Yeah.
Because I had the fantasy cap on and he was...
You thought he was going to... Everyone did, man.
Yeah.
But I just think he's going to roll 3 deep, like with Simpkin, with probably LDU ahead of him.
Phillips will
probably
get
for most
mid-time.
of his career, yeah, as well. I don't know, yeah, like him and Phillips probably battling out for that number 3 role.
Yeah.
I reckon he's ahead of Phillips at the moment. I just think his ceiling's going to be capped though, just competing with the other 2 ahead of him. When you consider how little fantasy scoring North Melbourne did last year, rolling 3 deep, he might not be there. But
yeah, if Wardlaw gets games, that's another one.
Yeah, true.
Sheasel can play in the middle.
Yeah, we'll talk about Sheasel next, but yeah, Tom Powell. I've got Warple on the brain. Tom Powell just kind of looked like that kind of next in line in this game anyway, and he just looked like he'd filled out a lot more and can actually play a lot better. Harry Sheasel, next one, 75 points. He started forward, but got real fantasy relevant when he switched to the halfback flank in the second half. Now, there's talk of him doing that in the preseason, intra-clubs as well, and it felt like when things just weren't working for North, they got smashed in this game. They just put him on the halfback flank and let him do his thing. So, do you reckon that's something we could see come the season? Or?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think he played there in his juniors.
Nah. Well, he did, but he did it in the intra-clubs.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, so.
Yeah, well, he's a really classy user of the footy, so he can play anywhere. So it'd be interesting to see where he plays in.
You reckon he's more tagged for a midfield though? Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think
we can
burst midfield player.
Yeah.
Similar to sort of Rochelle and that.
What we're going to see Rankin do probably a bit this year.
Yeah, those sort of guys.
Yeah.
I think he's probably a lock for round 1 though. He's going to play early.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to one of the older fellas, Ben Cunnington. He's undervalued this year just because he played forward and didn't score very well last year. He was back in the midfield for the first 3 quarters, had 69 points, but he sat forward for the last quarter. So I think it was more about match fitness and just management and things like that. But the good thing about it is we're not seeing him rest on the bench. We're seeing him rest up forward. So hopefully he spends more time in the middle as the match fitness kind of goes on. But even though it was only 69 points, I think it was pretty encouraging for the amount of time he spent forward. And I do expect that midfield time to rise a little bit. Will Phillips did enough to get picked round 1, but he just wasn't anything special in this game. But he's around the mark. 56 points from him. Definitely one to pick up in your drafts and just keep your eye on. Jaden Stevenson cops a lot of criticism, and he probably deserved it in the first probably 10 minutes. He didn't start the game, and he came on at half time. And I think he was playing up forward, which I don't know if is great for his fantasy scoring. And I think in the first 5 minutes, he had this real hungry shot on goal, which went out of bounds on the full. And it's like, oh, Jed Stevenson, he's back.
There he is.
But as the game went on, he got a lot better. He got a lot less selfish, tried to bring his teammates in the game a lot more, and actually had 55 points in less than a half of footy.
It helps his fantasy scoring when he lowers the eyes and looks
exactly.
for blokes.
And that's what he did. So, yeah, I reckon he put his hand up for round 1. I wouldn't say it was guaranteed. But he didn't. I don't think by the end of the game he did himself any harm in this game.
Yeah,
so.
He's probably one that I can see Clarko just hating by the end of the game.
Same, but also loving if he does the right things.
Just such an annoying
like if he can
player.
convert him, I reckon
he's
Clarko would love him.
Freak player.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to actually do it. The Cherry Goldstein ruck again. The split didn't look good. I'm not loving this year for fantasy rucks because I think there's going to be a lot of tandems in there, and there's going to be growth. So yeah, Cherry and Goldstein look no different to everyone else we've talked about tonight. Both scoring in the 40s. Not going to be great considering we thought Goldstein might be, or we thought Cherry might overtake, but yeah, I don't know. Don't know what's happening. And just another interesting one. Liam Shields had 50 points and he just ran up and down the wing all day. He's only interesting because he's listed as a forward. Don't think he's going to play too much, but if he can get a game here and there listed as that forward, might be okay given the role he was playing. All right, we're on the home stretch here. We're 75 minutes into the podcast and we're up to the final game of the round, I believe. So I had a look at this one. We'll try to get through it quickly. Melbourne versus Richmond. Lockie Hunter, he looks the goods on that wing. He had 99 points. I think he's going to be back to his best. I think sometimes the change of scenery can just help things out a little bit. Feel really sorry for James Jordan.
Yes,
like
that's rough.
I know, he just nowhere to be seen. So looked like him and Langdon on the wings all day. So yeah, basically
strong wings.
Yeah,
two of the best wingers in the comp.
Really good. So yeah, Melbourne have got a class player there and it's a good pickup. Another guy we'll just brush over, Stephen May. He's another guy who's always available in draft pools. He gets dropped back every year, but always scores pretty well, like at least in the 70s. Had 87 points in this game. Takes a lot of marks in defence. Always takes kick-ins.
One of the best fantasy key defenders.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, get on board. You just pick him up in like your, 18th, 19th round basically. Lock him on your bench, and then when you need him, bring him on. He'll still get you 70 most weeks. He's pretty handy. James Harms. A lot of talk about him because He scored 86 points, and Melbourne have talked all the preseason about they're going to be rotating through the middle a lot more. So last year they had a very core midfield group.
Yeah,
that didn't
very
rotate.
set. Yeah,
set and forget type thing. This year it looked like they're moving a lot more people through there. Cozzy Pickett was another one that went through. We'll talk about him in a sec. But Harms was definitely part of that rotation, and he went head-to-head with Hopper for most of the game and held his own, really. And he's listed as a forward in fantasy. So he's one to keep your eye on. If the rumours are true and he does rotate through that midfield mix, he could be a goer in fantasy. And he always seems to pop up and be handy for coaches out there. So I just don't see a reason why he wouldn't be after that performance, because he was fine. So, yeah, just depends if they're willing to kind of push that midfield deeper. That's all.
Yep.
Alex Neil-Bullen had 81 points. Looked to be pushing higher up the ground, but I wouldn't expect big things. He can just put up some scores here and there. But, still at half forward role, but seemed to be pushing further into defence and getting a few kicks up there. But it could just be pre-season form and stuff like that as well. Jake Bowie had 79 points. He scored well. No Salem in the side still. Could be a goal if he can remain in the side. Do you reckon he sticks in the side for now?
I think so, yeah. I think it's tough. I do think he does, though, yeah. I think he's round one.
Well. Yeah, yep. Considering, he played all those games into the grand final, played the starter last year, needed to go back, find some form, but still played enough senior footy last year, really. It wasn't as much as people kind of, I think, have in their minds as he did. I think he does play round one and could develop his game enough this season to be a handy scorer. Cozzy Pickett's an interesting one, 76 points. He started at a lot of the centre bounces, but then quickly pushed forward. It was like Petrarca kind of went forward and then pushed, as soon as the bounce went up, he went in and then Cozzy Pickett went back. But that could just be handy for Petrarca's forward status as well. So interesting to watch. 76 points which is definitely more than usual for Cozzy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so just watch that one because he was getting plenty of CBAs. It's just he didn't spend as much time as the CBAs probably make it look like. You know what I mean? But still scored okay. So the other one. Moving on to Richmond, probably the most commented player on our Twitter feed this week was Liam Baker. So he had 121 points, and he just looked like one of the few Tigers that was actually trying. Now, he's listed as a defender and a forward, so that is so handy in fantasy. And if he was probably a defender only, I probably wouldn't be as high on him. But given he's got forward status, with what we saw, with Jaden Short not looking like he's going to go back in that defence, and he didn't do it last year, but I don't know, I think Baker could mop up a bit more this year. What do you reckon?
Play that sort of role.
Yeah. Well, he had the opportunity to do it last year, that's the thing, and didn't do it. But I don't know. He just looked...
Short will get thrown around, bit of forward, bit of mid.
It's so weird to see him forward. Just play him on the halfback, please.
Yeah,
but anyway.
But it's good for Baker if he doesn't.
Absolutely.
You know he can score highly.
Yeah, he might be a bit inconsistent because Richmond game
is
style,
that's the other thing.
There's quite a few Rioli, you got Vlosten.
It's tough to pick Tigers.
Do a bit there, but yeah, I don't know. He just looked like the one who was trying. He might be in. I think he's only 25 as well, so probably coming into his, or maybe 26, but coming into his prime of his career as well. Could go next level. Daniel Rioli was just one of the main distributors out of defence. He kicked the goal too. But only one kick in. So last week I was commenting that he took a lot of the kick ins and thought he might get a scoring boost there, but still scored really well. I didn't actually write it down, but I know it was pretty decent. Still scored well this week without taking a heap of kick ins, so that's positive signs. Would be remiss of us not to talk about a Dow on this podcast, given Dossie and his history here with Paddy Dow. He also loves Thompson Dow. Thompson Dow made the song, actually, as well. What do you think of that song at the highway?
That was an absolute highlight of the day. So good.
I think it's out.
That's one of the best yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because it was about himself as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't seen Dossie's song, it's now up on our YouTube channel now. It was debuted at the live show, premiered at the live show. Up on the Keeper League YouTube channel. Check that one out. But Thompson Dow... He had 71 points, took his opportunity with Prestia out really early with a wrist, I think it was, and he won a few clearances and did some really nice things. What was interesting is Cochin just didn't go in the midfield. Because I thought once Prestia or someone goes down, Cochin just straight back in. Didn't happen. So, I think Thompson Dow, don't think he's best 22, but he's probably next in line for one of those midfield roles if someone goes down. So he's not listed as a forward anymore, so it doesn't make him as valuable. I'm not sure what his ceiling is going to be, but he might get some opportunity. So maybe a rookie lister or a really late pickup might be worth throwing something at him. Not expecting too big of things, but there's potential there.
Does he get more games than Paddy?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think that's hard, though, really.
That's not saying much.
Yeah, I think probably one, I reckon, to have more than Paddy.
Yeah, probably. Poor Paddy.
Yeah, I know. Tom Lynch had 62 from 59% time on ground. I still reckon he's a good one to pick up as a streamer. You'll get him super late, given his age and injury in the preseason.
He's going to kick so many goals.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with that midfield now.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Even though he's had a shaky start, he's playing now, which is positive. He'll play round 1, so it should be fine. And I just want to mention this last week, but Judson Clark, he was playing on the wing all last week, did it again this week. Only 42 points, but it's a nice role for fantasy given that he's listed as a forward. So one to pick up super, super late, just in case, Pickett stays out for a while. He racks up on that wing, and given as he's a forward, might be handy. Anyways, Tommy, I reckon we're going to wrap that one up because this is a super long monster podcast. These ones always are, but we'll be back next week. Well, I'll be back next week to talk about some my draft results, and I might try to find a guest to talk about one of their drafts as well, along with we might dissect that ADP data a little bit more. But thanks for joining us on the show.
Pleasure,
today.
Heff. Always a pleasure.
Before we sign off, I'll make sure just people get around that Game Day Squad live stream I'm going to do on Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m.
Got to get onto that
on the YouTube. Yeah, make your Game Day Squad side. Actually, next time you come on, we'll talk about what cards you've unpacked from there. But if you haven't done it either, head to gamedaysquad.com.au. Get your free packs, build your team. Tweet me what you've pulled in your pack, so I'd like to see it. Get around our socials: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at Keeper League Pod on all of those. Make sure you support Manscaped. Also, use Keeper20 at checkout to get 20% off and free shipping. And last but not least, if you want to support the podcast, please sign up as a member and keep this thing ticking along. Anyways, thanks, listeners, and we'll talk to you next week. See ya.
Bye.
Done.
Awesome.
Dossie used to always go, bye.
Did he?
Just remind me of that. I think Sanch had a good one as well. A good sign off. Anyways.
Bit of a sign off.
Yeah, you need to have one, I reckon. Thanks, live streamers. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.